These are the Kalash, the black pagans of the Hindu Kush, a tiny survival in a surrounding sea of Islam. They follow ancient gods and speak a language distantly akin to Greek. The people welcomed Alexander, and they told him an amazing story. They too were worshippers of the Greek god of ecstasy, Dionysus. Alexander had once again hit gold. From his mother's knee, Alexander had been told tales of Dionysus, how he'd been born far out to the east. Now the people took him to sacrifice on the very mountain where they said Dionysus had been born. To Alexander, it was an unmistakable sign. The god was here. Alexander joined them, wearing an ivy crown, drunk on their wine, dancing for the god, just as his mother used to do. And today the Kalash add another twist to the tale. They say some of the Greeks stayed on here under one of Alexander's generals, Shalak Shah. They married local women, and we, the Kalash, are their direct descendants. He's now fled in terror eastwards. They took shelter on a rock fortress high above the Indus Valley, a place the Greeks called Aionos. The rock was said to be impregnable. The Greeks were told that even Hercules had failed to take it when he wandered the earth on his 12 labors. It towered a mile above the river Indus. Its summit, a long curving ridge with enough cultivation to keep 1,000 men busy. Today it's called Pir Sar. There was only one path up which joined the mountain along the ridge from the west. On Pir Sar, Alexander would surpass even himself. We set out to climb Pir Sar in the Macedonians' footsteps. It's a wild region here, and the district officer gave us guides and armed police to drive off wolves and bandits.
Thank you very much. Come on. According to the Greeks, their advance guard was led by local guides up onto the rock, and they came on a secret path. And there's only one way that could be, it's this. It comes across this narrow neck of land, which is the only way you can get onto the rock. The ground, as you can see, falls away dramatically on either side, with huge crags on either side. So this must be the route that the Greeks took.
To him, the only explanation I could come up with was what the Greeks called Alexander's pothos, his desire to surpass even the gods.
Have you seen my king Khan? Concentrate on the Indian defenders, and then the fate of the rock was sealed.
The Indians tried to surrender, but Alexander swept along the ridge and massacred them or drove them off the cliffs. On top, he left an altar to Athena as goddess of victory. Looking out towards the roof of the world, Alexander could reflect he had surpassed even Hercules himself. Alexander paused briefly at the ancient city of Taxila on the Grand Trunk Road. Here a Greek city grew up, the first in the subcontinent. A city of neat lines, a place of colonists, set apart from the hubbub of the native town next door. For centuries after, Greek was spoken in these streets just as English is now. In the bazaars you can still find the coins of Alexander's successors, Greek Maharajas lauding it in a Greek Raj.
Ah, this is Greek. Yes, Eucratides the Great. Where did the coin come from? Does he know?
And on their coins the heirs of Alexander proudly sport the cavalry hat and scarf of Alexander's crack units, with all the swagger of fighter aces, the viciously valiant Greeks, as the Indians called them. So began the meeting of two of the great civilizations in history. Alexander too was shown with the headdress of elephant hide, conqueror of India. That was his ambition now. He marched on south, towards the Great Salt Range. Long before the Grand Trunk Road, this was the ancient route into India. Great rivers of the Punjab, and beyond the plains of India stretching away as far as the Ganges itself, the heartland of Indian civilization. For the Greek troops and their leadership, it must have been an extraordinary moment after all the thousands of miles that they'd travelled. And from now on, they'd be marching into the unknown. To the Ganges, China even, the whole of history might have been different, but it was not to be. Before he turned back, he made altars to the gods who'd brought him so far: Dionysus, Apollo, Hercules. And an inscription: Alexander stopped here. The last of the old master boat builders on the Indus chuckled at the idea. These Greek warships, he said, would never cope with the Indus. He sketched a few modifications to Alexander's naval plans.
Meanwhile, panic spread through the army. They feared that with Alexander dead, they'd never see home again.
They went berserk and massacred everyone in the city. Alexander's surgeon prepared to operate. Critobulus of Kos had been his father's doctor. He'd once taken an arrow from King Philip's eye. Over the years, Alexander had taken punishment which would have stopped an ox. Leg and thigh wounds, a catapult bolt in the shoulder, 21 wounds in all. This, though, was the most serious. His lung was pierced. The story here is that the arrow was poisoned and that Alexander never really recovered. Now, the Greek historians don't mention this, but the traditional doctors here, the Hakims, claim descent from Alexander's doctors. They practice what they call Greek medicine, so perhaps they should know. But poison or not, both doctor and patient knew that Alexander was very close to death. For a week, Alexander's life hung in the balance. Then they gently floated him along the river so the army could see he was alive. They cried with relief. They still loved him.